Hey everybody, it's Massholes, and this is Chuck,
And Mintzy.
and we're here to bring it to you. We're gonna lay it up so you can play it out, and we're on all the spots that you can get the best podcasts. Download us on iTunes. Mintzy, it is on. It's on right now.
We're gonna send it.
We are going to
Send it.
We're gonna let it fly.
Let's send it.
Let's set it off. All right, it's Massholes, everybody. All right, so when people ask me about interesting jobs in sports and they say, Chuck, I see you doing all these interesting things and it seems like you have the best job, inevitably, I can't tell these stories about what I've done without your name, Dave Mintz, coming up in conversation. And you went right to the NBA right out of college, drafted. What round in the were you drafted? You went to UMass Amherst, right?
Right. Yep. It's exactly right. University of Massachusetts at Amherst, Eisenberg School of Management. I was a finance and operations management major, actually.
Wow. And then what led the NBA to say we want him?
Right, because that's the natural career path you take right there. With a finance and operations management major, you go right in and work for the National Basketball Association, right? So, actually, the way it happened is my father's best friend that he grew up with in Worcester, Massachusetts, a gentleman by the name of Mark Tomashow.
Mm-hmm.
He was working at Nike. He had been at Nike at this point for about 20 years. And when I talked to him, Mark's been a great mentor for me in my entire life. But when I was talking to him about what my passions were and what I wanted to do in life, I told him I want to do what you do.
Right.
I want to work in sports. I want to be around athletes. Sports is a passion of mine. So he basically gave me his Rolodex.
Right.
And he said, have at it. He said, the commissioners are out, but within reason, have at it. He gave me his Rolodex, and I really appreciate that to this day. And I just started doing informational interviews, and it stuck with the NBA. They gave me a 7-month, no guarantee, basically temp contract to be a temp worker. And the rest is history. From there, I kind of worked my tail off and got my foot in the door, so to speak. So
yeah, and certainly people see the type of career that you've had and things that I've done for that matter, and it's not the typical kind of go on monster.com and apply for a job. You started with the passion first and then found the job that fit what your interest level was. And I think a lot of people start the other way, is that they get the job and then they try to find a passion, but they might be in insurance or, real estate or something like that. And that's not what they truly wanted to do. And, I guess the lesson from what you just said was when you are young, that's the time to kind of, at least you have nothing to lose. Go for something, try something interesting. And if you work hard enough,
absolutely. And hey, listen, I'm almost 40 years old, and I probably still don't know what I want to do with my life, right? Let's be honest.
Right.
But I remember summer going into my senior year of college. It was the summer of '99, the last time the Boston Red Sox in Fenway Park hosted the MLB All-Star Game.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark invited my dad and I out because he, through Nike, he had all these, we were at the home run derby watching Mark McGwire hit what looked like golf balls over the Green Monster.
Right,
for
I
the
remember
home run
that.
derby.
Yeah, it was nuts.
And then, of course, the All-Star game the next day where Pedro came in, struck out 5 of the first 6 batters. They had rolled Ted Williams out there.
And it turned out that night, Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, they were drinking like tons of Red Bull, right? Wasn't that the big controversy? They had too much like B12.
I cannot confirm or deny.
Was it Gatorade? What was it they were drinking? Anyway, so
no, but the whole point of the story is, I was 21 years old, going into my senior year of college, and I remember being at these events and seeing what Mark did and how his relationships and who he was around and who he was talking to and the excitement of everything. And I remember looking at my dad and saying, I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I want to do.
Right.
And fortunately that was, summer going into my senior year of college, because I probably still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life.
Right.
But I saw what he did and I was like, I want that.
Yeah.
So.
And that's generally speaking, one of the things where you see from the outsider's perspective looking in, wow, that job is friggin' cool.
Yeah.
And it's not the full picture. Like I'm just seeing the fun days. But in a lot of ways, I mean, I think this is the important conversation to have at this stage, because the legends that we're going to talk to, the captains of industry, we're going to talk to Mark Tomashow down the line about his career and everything else. And people are going to ask, like, how the F did you and Chuck get to meet these people and talk to these people?
It was fate, right? It was fate.
That you and I met?
Yes.
Yeah, well,
Fate.
really. Again, and we'll talk about, real specific things, but, just so people understand, Dave had, right out of college, went to work for the NBA. Then, you put in some heavy time in terms of like doing everything that they asked you to do.
I
right?
did. I started out working for a gentleman named Charlie Rosenzweig in the entertainment and player marketing department at a division of NBA Entertainment, which is in,
and that's where we met.
Right. They're headquartered in Secaucus, New Jersey.
Right.
And really, I just moved down there cold turkey to New Jersey. I knew nobody. Luckily my sister at the time was living in Morristown, and she let me crash on her couch for about 4 months, but till I found my own place. But moved down there. It was literally at the NBA they call it a project employee, which is a fancy word for a temp, right? That's all I was. 7-month contract, no guarantees past that for a full-time position. And I remember the words that Mark Tomashow told to me. He said, just outwork everybody. He's like, if you go in, you put your head down, and you outwork everybody, good things will happen to you. And as luck would have it, so I started in January of 2001, went to my first All-Star in Washington, D.C., and Christopher Granger, who at the time at the NBA headed up the NBA Associates program, which is the official trainee program of the NBA, he noticed, me running around like crazy, working my tail off at NBA All-Star, and he said,
that's where we met.
That's where we met.
Right.
DC was our first NBA
Washington,
All-Star.
DC, right. Yep.
And he noticed me, and he said, I think you should apply for an associate's position. Highly regarded, highly competitive. I mean, we're talking most of the candidates. I think they hired 16 associates that year.
Right.
And more than half of them were Ivy League schools. And I am coming from University of Massachusetts at Amherst, right? So, and I applied for it, and I got the job. So that was my foot in the door to the NBA.
What was amazing, and this is all the young kids listening out there, is that those relationships early on to this day still are very valuable. And you and I at that point, we're just meeting people and having fun, and that's our natural sweet spot. I think that you and I both enjoy. Like, we had an interesting relationship starting out because you grew up on the North Shore of Massachusetts. I grew up on the South Shore, and there's always that competitive rivalry. But for 10 years, you and I only saw each other in different parts of the country at these events, never in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
It wasn't until, a little bit down the line. But as you were climbing up the ladder, as I was doing what I was doing, we would meet in February, wherever it would happen to be, and it would be a whirlwind, of
looking back on it, it was actually really strange.
Right.
I mean, we looked alike, we acted alike.
Right.
Like, people thought we were brothers.
Yeah.
And it was just a coincidence that you were from Plymouth and I was from Newburyport, man.
Yeah.
It was just it was fate.
And
it was like
and right away, your department was putting on you were in charge of the
right.
The NBA Trivia Challenge.
Yeah.
Right? It was a trivia stage.
The NBA Video Trivia Challenge.
Right. So this was
NBA All-Star Jam Session.
Right. And Jam Session, which I don't really know if they do that anymore,
It
was sort of an interactive playground for the fans to come in who probably weren't going to see the All-Star game, but wanted to experience the NBA in all shapes and sizes and stuff. And so your department, you guys were crushing those Michael Jordan videos, the slam dunk videos, all of those old school media things that nowadays you don't see any of that. But it was, remember all those I'm asking you, those DVDs and VCR videotapes. I have a ton of them still in my basement that I got from that event.
We had a lot of fun.
We did.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. And you know, I'm going to flip this around and actually talk about you for a sec, because you're right. You were doing your kind of own thing. You had your own career, but you still had the flexibility with your job to come out and work an NBA All-Star weekend, you know?
Yeah.
And that helped you develop additional relationships that have helped you along in your career, right?
Well, I was doing these cheesy game show things at colleges. I was like a DJ at the time.
Yeah.
And I had this company that I was working with, a guy in, on the Cape, and we built these traveling game shows. So a college for orientation would book us, and I had done stand-up comedy, so I was just all about the show, and I was having fun with it, but looking back, I'm exhausted even thinking about it. And I pitched it to Megan Rojic, who was a South Shore, she went to Vassar, and then she went on to work, and then was it Paul Lambert, right?
Paul Lambert,
and he now is the head curator, I think, at the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Mass. Great guy, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And they were like, we like this idea. This will be great. Interactive programming, at these jam session events. And, we were filming it and taping it. And then all of a sudden, this skinny kid from Newburyport shows up, and the Patriots had just won the Super Bowl.
You're right.
And for the first time, not for the the fifth time, or that we were nobodies at that point, and we with celebrities. Remember Donovan McNabb, the quarterback for the Philadelphia
Eagles.
Eagles.
That's where I met Mike Scooter Magruder.
Oh, okay,
Mike Scooter Magruder
played for the Patriots.
Yep, Priest Holmes.
Yep,
of Kansas City Chiefs. Running back fame. Donovan McNabb, Philadelphia Eagles quarterback. Dave Winfield. I'm trying to think of some of the other guys that hosted.
The legends are astounding.
Yeah, I mean it was it really was amazing. I mean
But let me paint the picture for the listener, because you and I were self-proclaimed massholes, and we were in enemy territory all the time. And this was, we probably made the hatred for the New England today even worse back then, because we were just so outspoken and cocky and dealing one-on-one with the fans and throwing it right in their face. And to a degree, I think a lot of people liked it. They enjoyed the ribbing and the rivalry and stuff. I remember Jerry Rice. You remember that?
Jerry Rice.
I called him out. I put this on Facebook, this video. I called him out. It was the NBA Read to Achieve. And the initiative for the NBA was like, we want to get kids to read, right, in school, so they would bring books. And, and so this little thing that I did, you remember this? They had me read stories with celebrities to kids. So I would be with Michael Imperioli from The Sopranos and Carson Daly and reading stories like The Cat in the Hat to a bunch of audience members. And then it would be me and like Justin Timberlake and Little Bow Wow.
Yeah.
And we were reading like the Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Vander Holyfield.
But the crowd would be thousands of moms and teenage girls. They weren't ready to listen to stories, but were like, Clifford ran to the bank, and then Little Bow Wow, and everyone was like,
and then you're working with Jerry Rice, and then the Masshole would kick in, and you'd start talking to Jerry Rice about how great Tom Brady and Troy Brown are, and he's like, "Come on, how does that compare to Joe Montana and me?"
This was, and I have this, Dave, on video. This is I don't have a lot of it because technology. We didn't have phones like we had video cameras, right? And Jerry Rice comes up, and a initiative about reading, and this was about 2 weeks after the Super Bowl, maybe, or a week after, because you remember it was delayed for 9/11, or changed.
The
date was
9/11 year. Yeah.
So Vivica A. Fox and Jerry Rice come up, and I asked his agent or handler or whatever. I said, "Is he comfortable talking about the snowball game? Where the tuck rule is he over it yet?" And he says, "Don't bring it up." I go, "Okay, I won't." So I bring him up, and I said, "Jerry, I know you like to read, and you've been reading the rule book for the NFL lately. What do you make of this whole tuck rule?" And he just he goes, "Can he go all white?" I think he did. And then he says, "Do you want to try on my Super Bowl ring that he had?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Whatever." He's like, "You think I'm going to get it, my Super Bowl ring?" And then I start giving him, all sorts of shit for, everything. And Vivica starts getting mad at me, and the crowd starts booing me. But that was kind of the environment. And
meanwhile, everybody's like, "Who are these guys?"
Right.
Like, who are these Massholes from Boston?
People were booing me.
Yeah.
Right. And
well, think about it. Going back to what you said, our first 4 All-Stars working together were in this order: Washington, D.C.,
right,
Philadelphia,
right,
Atlanta, and then Los Angeles.
So, and Denver was mixed in there, right?
Right, but
right,
I'm talking about rivalry cities. So
right.
Let's throw Atlanta out of there. Washington, D.C., then Philly.
Right.
Philly was when we were doing we were simulating the Adam Vinatieri game-winning Super Bowl field goal by
kicking
T-shirts
into the crowd
at the NBA Video Trivia Challenge,
making people beg.
Right, and then Los Angeles. We don't even need to go there about the Celtics,
which pales. That story we got to table that one.
Yeah.
When we were on the double-decker bus, literally almost killing people. That's a great story. We got to not
That'll
forget
be down
that.
the road.
All right,
yeah.
so you're getting the point. We've established this relationship, and then we went years, and we've got guests that are going to be coming on that all tie in that we've met. Dave traveled the world with the NBA. You went to Russia and China, right? I mean, tell all the places you've been to with the NBA.
I was very fortunate. I worked at the NBA from 2001 to 2008. This was a time when the commissioner at the time, David Stern, was really trying to grow the game of basketball globally. It was a major, major initiative for him. This is when players like Yao Ming and Dirk Nowitzki,
and by the way,
Pau Gasol.
We're not connected with the NBA in the sense of I'm not a stockholder, I'm not an employee, but they did crush it with that. I mean, of all the sports,
amazing.
They I think the quality of football is better. I enjoy it more than basketball. I love basketball, but they own the world.
Yeah.
Their brand is everywhere, and that's because of what you were doing.
Absolutely. And when I say David Stern was trying to grow the game globally, I mean, there were all different types of events I worked on. Basketball Without Borders. I got to go to Brazil for that. We would do it was something called NBA Europe Live, where we would do preseason games. We went over there with the Los Angeles Clippers to Russia, and played in this 1980s Cold War, 1980 Olympic arena. L.A. Clippers versus the CSKA Russian national team. Traveled all over the world and experienced different cultures. I was very fortunate to be able to do that.
And and that is what behind the scenes the NBA does to grow the brand and let other parts of the way. I mean, think about it. I mean, we're in Boston, and we like the Celtics. And we grew up that way. But that's the equivalent of some football rugby team or something from Australia, or Manchester United becoming part of our everyday lives here in the United States, and we're super fans of these leagues. I mean, they did a pretty impressive job of getting that brand out there at the right time. I
mean, Yao Ming, just look at him in China. He was the Beatles times 10.
Well, he was
over there
genetically a freak.
Yeah,
in China of all places, right?
7'6", 7'5", or 7'6".
I think we were in Houston for the All-Star game, or Denver, one of them. I can't remember. And we're walking through the concourse, and his mother's 6'10", or something, and his father is 6'11", and you see them coming. I didn't need to see any name badges to know whose parents that was. It wasn't, it wasn't Allen Iverson's parents, put it that way, at the time. You were like, oh my God. And you just think, man, they must have owned China. Ivan Drago from Russia, in Rocky. I mean, he looked like Drago, right?
Did.
With the face and the spiked up hair.
Played for Houston with guys like Tracy McGrady. Right? Guy.
Now, isn't he just going into the Hall of Fame right now? Didn't I notice that I saw him? We'll have to check that. But
I don't know if he made the Hall of Fame. That's a good question.
But the Basketball Hall of Fame, if we ever refer to it, is not the NBA Hall of Fame. It's like the basketball. So you might see, a college basketball coach for the girls' sports, or the Harlem Globetrotters, or somebody who was in the world of basketball.
Springfield, Massachusetts.
Right. Yep.
The home of literally the game of basketball was created by a gentleman by the name of Dr. James Naismith.
Mm-hmm.
He was at a YMCA gym in Springfield, Massachusetts, and he hung a peach basket up to the wall, and thus the game of basketball was created.
Amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I do have one quick funny story, if I could, about Yao Ming that has nothing to do with Yao Ming's basketball playing.
Love it.
I had to go work at one point. So when I worked in Charlie Rosenzweig's department, we oversaw NBA publishing and home video.
Mm-hmm.
And as part of that, we had a partnership with Scholastic. Scholastic.
Oh, right. I
Kids
remember.
Books.
Yep, exactly.
So they would do these contests, and one of them was you won to be a Scholastic Kids reporter to go down and spend a day in the life with Yao Ming in Houston. And I had to go down there with this winner. I think he was like I want to say a 10-year-old boy.
Okay.
And he won this contest. We go down to Houston, and I do day in the life. He interviews Yao Ming. We have a great day. It just so happens that it was a playoff game, and the halftime performance was by William. Was it William Chung or William Hung?
William Hung from American Idol.
From American Idol.
Yeah.
Okay. So picture this. I'm here.
I don't know this story, by the way, so this is great. I thought I knew everything about it.
No.
Okay.
I'm sitting there halftime. We're doing these interviews. Clyde Drexler's there too on the sideline with me, giving me looks. So I'm up.
And William Hung is a disaster.
Disaster.
He was a joke.
Disaster.
Right.
We're doing Yao Ming's in the concourse doing autographs. And I somehow find myself in an elevator going up in an elevator with William Hung and his mother. Okay?
Right.
And I literally say to her, I go, Mrs. Hung, I'm like, David Mintz with the National Basketball Association, we have Yao Ming up in the concourse doing autographs. Would William like to come up and sit at the table and sign some autographs with him? And she literally, no joke to this day, I crack up every time I think of her response. Her response to me is, "Oh no, William is a superstar. William is a superstar. If we bring him out into the concourse, he's going to be mobbed by his fans. He cannot do that." And me sitting there going, yeah, Yao Ming being in the concourse,
right.
That's fine. But William Hung, she bangs. We bring him out there, all hell's going to break loose in the concourse.
Jeez.
It was amazing.
I bet you Yao is hung too. I mean, related, right? They probably could go through the family tree and they would see some Hung in there. I mean, he's 7'1", right? Anyway,
I just remember thinking how that you think about parents that look at their kids and just they think obviously so highly of them,
right?
But talk about overshooting. I mean, this kid, 15 minutes of fame. Everybody remembers him. American Idol. She bangs.
Right.
And she's talking about him like he's the Beatles, and we can't bring him up because he'll get mobbed by his fans. While Yao Ming is up there already sitting doing autographs.
And I was in the next elevator over with Yao Ming's mother, and she was saying, I knew Yao was going to be great in the NBA because as an infant he was 4'3". And that's like a record for a baby. He was
a large man.
A large man.
Is a large man.
Yeah.
He's
and again,
dead.
putting in the context of China and where the average height, they're a relatively short, culture, right? I mean, you've been there. I haven't.
Yeah, but Yao Ming, he just transcended basketball.
You're right.
For Asia. It's unbelievable now. The game of basketball, how it's grown in China and in Asia.
Right.
You hear about all these NBA athletes now.
What was the kid's
Kobe
name
Bryant,
for a couple of years
LeBron
ago?
James, they are huge in China.
What was the
huge.
kid that played? Oh, I can't believe I forget the name. And he played for the Knicks, and he was on that little spurt Asian. He played at Harvard or something.
The point guard. He's on the Brooklyn Nets now.
Yeah.
Jeremy Lee.
Right, yeah. And what's he up to now?
He plays for the Brooklyn Nets, but he got injured this year. I think
he was like a little phenom, again, in that sort of identity, fandom of like, okay, we're gonna like this guy because he's Asian and he's gonna get more popular.
Was it Linsation? What did
Yeah,
they say?
yeah,
What was his
Linsanity or something like.
Linsanity.
Yeah,
Linsanity.
yeah. So anyway,
yeah,
well,
because the Knicks have done a lot of. Let's not talk about the Knicks. Have the Knicks ever won anything?
back in '72,
Sorry, this is the Masshole coming out here.
right? Well, I have one of my good friends. Remember, we met him at the Legends brunch last year. Pete DeBuscher, the son of Dave DeBuscher, and I went to college with Pete.
Rest in peace.
And Dave passed away, and Dave was an influencer in the NBA beyond just being one of the 50 greatest players of all time in the Hall of Fame, but he was the first to start the NBA's Players Association, or the Retired Players Association, which, we'll talk about that at another time. And so this is kind of the sense you'll get from these conversations. Dave and I are going to host this podcast together and talk to all sorts of interesting people. And
we're just scratching the surface.
Oh, right.
Here.
Well, I know that I'm taking mental notes because one story that you say reminds me of 6 stories that that we're going to bring up, and it'll tie into people that we talk to, because we'll be talking to Mark Thomas Show and George Gervin and Bill Walton down the line. All these people we're excited to chat with. So, stick around, follow us, make sure that you download the podcast each and every week. Dave, we'll have some fun next time. How about that?
Looking forward to it. Should be a fun week out in Los Angeles this week. So,
all right, see you around, everybody. We'll be back.